So you'll record this and then
Yes.
it'll kind of, yeah.
All right. Good morning, Devashish. Welcome to the event Leaders and Libraries, and thank you for accepting the invitation and joining the force. In the last 1.5 months, we have had over 20 plus illustrious leaders like you coming on this event and talking about a book that has inspired their leadership journey. So before we get started and delve into the book that you have chosen, let me introduce you to the audience. So, good morning, listeners and viewers. Welcome to the event once again. We have yet another guest, Mr. Debashish Ghosh. I know him for a good number of years, a very good friend and a professional acquaintance. He is the Vice President and Country Head HR for Vercadia, a Berkshire Hathaway company. He's also an awardee of two global prestigious credentials on HR, which is Certified Global Talent Management Leader from TMI. He's also Marshall Goldsmith Certified Coach. He's an NLP practitioner. He's somebody who's also associated with SHRM and HRFI kind of organizations, a fitness freak, and also an avid reader. And he believes in learn, unlearn, and repeat, is what his page says. And the evidence of that is in the last 3-4 months of lockdown, he has finished 5 or 6 certifications, which clearly says it's all about learn, unlearn, and keep repeating. So welcome on board, Debashish. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Its pleasure is all mine, Rajiv. Thanks to be talking to you. You have known each other for a long time and good you're connecting and discussing something that we have a mutual passion for, books, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Super. So before we get started into this book, let me throw the first question to you. So tell me, Debashish, how and when did your love for books start?
Well, I think it started very, very early, Rajiv. All of my earliest memories I have is from my childhood when my mom used to read the Amachitra Katha to me, right? And then we had those Tinkle, Chanda Mamas, and the Phantom comics. Those were the pre-television, early Doordarshan days. So reading was a favorite pastime, as to say. And then as I grew up, there were those Reader's Digest, which my brother hooked me into. And then we had in my preteen days, I had those Jeffrey Archers and O. Henrys, and then lots of Bengali literature. In fact, I was born into a family where our bookshelves are filled to abundance, all the time. So the habit of reading was inculcated, very early in my life, and I'm very, very thankful for that, actually.
Fantastic. Thank you for reminding those days, because I remember those Mandrakes and Phantoms and Lothars of the world, plus also those Jeffrey Archers. I think great days, because Amachitra Kathas or Jataka Tales and Panchatantra, I was telling the other on a talk that today when I look back, they also had so much of leadership lessons.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. We may not have a John or a Peter or a Devashish or a Rajiv as characters, but we had crocodiles and we had the cranes and frogs who were those characters.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Lovely, lovely, super.
And because they were told in a very storytelling manner, those lessons stayed with us, right?
It did.
I mean, the jackal story, the crow story, who will ever forget? The rabbit and the hare, you will never forget those.
Correct.
Stories that books are so powerful. Yeah.
I know. And the illustrations were fabulous.
Yes.
Fabulous
absolutely.
illustrations. Yeah, beautiful. So starting from those books and you went on to the novels, and then your movement into management books must have started at some part of your professional career. How did reading a habit help you and contribute towards your growth as a leader?
Yeah. Rajiv, I remember when I was very young, I told you that my mom used to read books to me. And I remember one day that I asked Mom, Mom, why do we read books? And I think, I remember she paused for a while and told me that because books have all the answers. And those are very simple words told by a mom to her child, but those simple words were at that time, I think, built into my subconscious mind. The fact that books has all the answers, right? And the more and more I grew in my life and my career, I realized how true that statement was.
Yeah.
Right. At the beginning of my career, frankly, Rajiv, you can see all the certifications now, but I did not have any formal education.
All of us, yeah.
And I did not have any MBA degrees. I did not study management. So whatever I learned, in my professional life to evolve, in your question, evolve as a leader,
Yeah.
about communications, businesses, organizations, HR that I do right now, but
True.
all from books to start.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Even today, Rajiv, even today, and you can say, and you talked about some of this on vacation, though those are really done to read and all to learn, right? Not to really do anything else. It don't serve any other purpose. Even today, I rely on books if I want to build my skills on something.
Right.
So the way I see it is, Rajiv, is that my pattern is that once I identify what I need to be good at, okay, I research on the best books available on that subject. That takes some time, frankly. There's so much stuff available.
Yeah.
Read those, and more importantly, I think implement those learnings in my profession.
The second thing is the most important.
yeah. So I love taking notes and then looking all those. I have this, a lot of post-its, a lot of markers that I write on that, and also write out some few highlights of that. And this has really worked for me very well. I can tell you right now, there's one skill that I'm focusing on is how to build my consultative skills, because that is very important for me as a leader. I'm not a consultant. I'm not working for McKinsey or BCG, but internally I'm a consultant to the organization, right? I sell ideas. I sell concepts. So I'm currently researching or other shortlisted few books which I'm going to read in the next few days and see what it's all about, and hopefully I'll grow in that area as well.
Do share the list of books that you have come up with. I can also probably give you one or two that I have researched. Maybe you have some common books or some additional books there.
Absolutely.
We can have a chat separately.
Yeah, you're my go-to person for books, so you will know about
it. Thank you. Please, because there have been a lot of consultative selling intervention that I've designed and delivered, and I could probably suggest a couple of books. It may be falling in the list that you have researched as well, so we can always share notes on that. Yeah,
I will always go to you for sure.
Beautiful. So that's very interesting that. Not a formal MBA that you said, but so-called knowledge of all that management came through books. I think that's the power of books, and it can be. What I liked is it's not just about reading but implementing it, right? And that's where probably my organization also stands, is helping leaders to implement the books, because all of us read, but how many of them really go and apply becomes the fundamental question. And the beauty is they are not the tinkles in Chanda Mamas. There are such powerful tools and techniques available that you can just pick it up and apply it if you would want to, right?
Yes.
Beautiful. So many books that you have read, and I was very happy when you picked up this book, because I want to go on record and tell you that you are the only leader who has picked up this book, Mindset by Carol Dweck. So tell me why this powerful book.
Yeah, I have a small table that I work from, and so a few books which are always there next to me, and this is one. Mindset is one of it. Very, very powerful. The tagline, there's got new versions as well. The one that I bought, I think I bought it about 6-7 years back. It was released in 2012, I think, the first time. And the tagline for the book said that changing the way you think about potential. And right now it says the new psychology of success. I think it pretty much means the same thing. Rajiv, when I read this book, it did exactly that. Change my thinking about what potential is, what talent is. What makes somebody successful or does not, right? And as if some flashlights went on, right? There's a lot of aha moments when I read this book. See, as a professional, I have always wondered about talent, like what makes people successful. I have always been surprised by some people who apparently and did not have the potential, typical potential while they're young, but they became really successful as adults.
Right.
And it happened the other way too. Somebody has great potential, great spark, but did not quite make it.
Yeah.
Right. And I got really curious about, how that happened. And that's when I laid my hands on this book. And while reading it, as I said, there are a lot of aha moments. This book, so one of the things that I look for a book is how much of research has gone into it. What are the framework that he's talking about, right? So that is so important to me. And this book, Mindset, is an outcome of almost 3 decades of research by a world-renowned Stanford University professor, a psychologist and professor, Carol Dweck, on success and talent, right? It talks about one groundbreaking idea and the power of mindset.
Yeah.
Very briefly, and probably you can talk a little bit more as we probably delve into more Q&A. I think it talks about 2 mindset One is a fixed mindset. Another is a growth mindset, right? Now, people with fixed mindset are those who believe that their abilities are fixed. Either you have it or you don't have it. They believe that their abilities cannot be grown over time. Basically, you can't improve. So that's why they're not inclined to take up new challenges for the fear of failures, because they know that they can't even succeed towards the point of taking up new challenges, new things, right? On the other hand, right, now the author talks about growth mindset. These are the people who believe that abilities can be improved over time. Their focus, and therefore their focus is on constantly improving themselves. They constantly challenge themselves and learn from their failures. So in the book, really, the author makes a point by narrating many real life examples from our research, from the world of business, of course, but also from the world of education, society, and sports. In fact, there are there's a chapter on parenting. There are parents listening to this interview. I think they should definitely read their book. No, doesn't matter if you work in a corporate or not, but you should read this book as a parent.
I agree.
And although the reason I like this book also is that although it is a work of some empirical research, the book is written in a very lucid and in a manner that even a new reader will find it enjoyable.
I agree.
Right? A fascinating read. And I can go on and on talking about this book. I really love it.
I completely agree, because I think what you said made a lot of sense to me also, because there is empirical data that he backs up very, very strongly that you cannot contest at all. However, it's been put in a very storytelling fashion. So it kind of grips you and takes you inside, and you go through the journey, and then you kind of validate it and attempt not validate it, do all that and come out with your own interpretations. I think lovely book. One more book I think you could have read it or you may not have read it is The Infinite Mindset by Simon Sinek. That's the third book by Simon Sinek after Leaders Eat Last. You should definitely pick this book and read it. Devashi is fabulous. It says The Infinite Mindset. He talks about the concept very similar to this, saying what is a finite mindset and what is an infinite mindset. It's fabulous book. Yesterday I had a chat with a guest on that particular book, so you should pick up this book and read it. It's lovely. You can see a lot of correlation with what Simon says and what Carol is talking about. Right?
I'll note it down on my notepad. I'll order it today, and then I love Simon's work. I did didn't read the second one you mentioned, the Leaders Eat Last. I will. Of course, the start with the why is a groundbreaking book in itself.
Absolutely. I pick up the other one also, because like the Marshall Goldsmith of the mojo and the triggers and what got you here are definitely a collector's choice, all three of them. Likewise, Simon's Start With Why, Infinite Mindset, and Leaders Eat Last is definitely a collector's choice. So go ahead and pick this book, Devashish.
I will.
Beautiful book. So let me take you a little into the concept of what he says. So how do you see these two mindsets, and why do you see them as so important?
I think that's a great question. And I think one of the important skills, Rajiv, one should have in today's world is learning agility.
Yeah.
We all talk about it, right? All the time. You spoke about my page says, learn, unlearn, relearn, and repeat. I think that doesn't stop. We should repeat doing that as well. The world around us is constantly changing. And as leaders, the only way to keep pace with the evolving world is by constantly updating your skills.
Yeah.
Right. So my mantra has been that learning agility, learning all the time, forgetting about what has been learned and moving on to the new ones, right? If required. I had also learned to see. So from this book, I've also learned to see failures and as opportunities to learn.
Right.
I've learned to accept feedback as constructive without being judgmental. And that's the book talks a lot about that as well. How to seems very simple, but it is not, right? To accept feedback the way it is without being judgmental. At least I struggled with that at some point of my career, right? I have learned that challenges are not showstoppers to my career and growth. They actually help me grow.
True.
I think more importantly, having the growth mindset, I have realized that my potential, talent, and ability is not predetermined at birth, right? It is not something that I am born with.
Yeah.
It is not something God's gift to me or not a gift to me. Rather, my effort and my attitude determine my abilities.
True.
This is important because every day around me, around you, of course, Rajiv, you will see that we work with some extremely talented people, isn't it?
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
Every day, all around us. And the way it changed was as a leader was that before reading the book, it was easy for me to look at the talent around me and slip into a mindset and tell myself that, that guy Rajiv has a special talent and I don't have it.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
I can't do this because I did not go to the best MBA college.
Right, right.
Or I never had the best in my life because I never got the easy jobs or never worked with the best of the bosses.
Mm.
With a growth mindset that I
Mm.
had developed, learned from this book, I
Mm.
started looking at things differently.
Okay.
Right now as a leader, I don't get into a blame game. I don't look for excuses.
Right.
I don't look at myself as a victim,
Mm.
right? My focus is on taking accountability of who I am,
Yeah. And putting effort.
accepting me who I am. Yes, absolutely. Because this is who I am.
True.
And believing on my attitude, believing on my efforts can take me to where I want to go. And the focus is always has been to get better. So it is not about comparison anymore.
I
It is
agree.
not about thinking that I don't have it, others have it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All of us have it. It's a question of realizing that potential, as
Beautiful.
Carol Dweck talks about.
Beautifully you said this, Devashi. In fact, if you go back a little bit on my own journey, and we know each other for many years, so we kind of grew together in our own careers, right? There were moments in my life where the result of an effort mattered a lot to me. Somehow today, the result of an effort doesn't matter. The effort alone matters. Because I realized that the result is any which way is an output, so it may happen, it may not happen, because there are multiple other forces that have an effect on it. But if I'm able to ensure that the black box has got enough effort that I've put in with that growth mindset, then as you rightly said, problem is, and I read this many years back, beautiful definition of the word problem. It says there is nothing called a problem. Problem is just a situation for which you have yet to find a solution.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful.
Absolutely.
There's no negativity at all. It is just a neutral situation for which you have to find a solution. As simple as that. And that's nothing but a growth mindset you're talking about. Lovely, Devashi. I'm loving this conversation. So the author also says, as he talks about these two mindsets, he says mindsets change the meaning of failure. How do you use this for somebody's advantage, and how did you use it for your own advantage?
Yeah, I think there is a chapter on failure. This is very, very powerful. I just hope that I can make justice to what she meant by that. I would encourage everyone to read about this book or listening to this. This is a very, very interesting concept and sounds simple yet powerful than just failures and failures being, lessons of success. Because see, success is about being your best self, not being better than others. But people with fixed mindset believe that everyone is born, as I said, with born talent and ability, and you can do nothing to improve it. Okay, for them, success is about being more gifted than others.
Right.
And effort is for those who can't make it on talent. They believe that if I have the talent, why should I make an effort? It should be the other way around, actually, right? So what happens with failures, Rajiv, in the bargain is that, so instead, people with a fixed mindset, so instead of trying to learn and repair their failures when they fail, people with fixed mindset may simply try to repair their self-esteem.
Right.
And that is something I found really powerful concept that Carol Dweck talks about. For example, when I talk about self-esteem, the author says that, for example, if somebody with a fixed mindset fails, they may go looking for some people who are worse off than the others.
To feel good.
To feel good, right? I have failed. It's bad, but so what? I mean, Rajiv also has failed worse than me, so I'm good enough. It's a very powerful concept. And how do you repair the self-esteem and what you look for, right? Yeah. And this is not a very significant lesson in my life and career, Rajiv.
True.
I started seeing failure as a totally different light, more as an opportunity rather than, and not as a condemnation, right? I started to see effort as the key to success. And not any talent or any skill, so to say, right? Early in my career, and that's a change that has happened, I used to really get, honestly, I used to get really, really depressed and bogged down by my own failures, right? Now I see failures with a growth mindset perspective. I
Right.
understand that failures do not define my intelligence. They
Correct.
do not define my personality.
Correct.
So instead, so what I do now, Rajiv, is that instead, after every failure, and by the way, you might read my great bio, but I fail a lot even today, Rajiv,
All of it.
to be
All
honest.
of it.
Okay, so I do a lot. So today the change is that after every failure, I ask myself, I think there are 2 or 3 questions. One, what did I learn from that experience? Two, what can I do differently next time?
Right.
And number three, how can I use this failure as a basis of my growth?
Beautiful. I like the third one a lot.
Yeah. So once you kind of question yourself and coach yourself, right? Asking these three, I believe, very powerful questions, which are again something I would say a prescription given by the book by Carol Dweck. I get a lot of clarity around my failures and how I can benefit from those failures. So again, very different perspective of failures. The meaning of failures for me has completely changed after reading this book.
Beautiful, beautiful. So as it changes the meaning of failures, and you spoke a lot about efforts, right? And efforts end of the day matter for you as a leader. Carol also talks about this in the chapter called Inside the Mindset, that mindset change the meaning of efforts also. So the earlier question
Right.
was, how does it change the meaning of failure? Here, how does it change the meaning of the word efforts? So what is your input to the young minds who are listening to you, that why should they start looking at this concept of mindsets change the meaning of efforts? How will it help them?
I think another very, very powerful statement and concept made in the book, and Karen Dweck shares a lot of examples from the world of business, sports, society, and all. But let me share an example from not from the book, but very, very I think very similar example of something she shared, and then very relatable from an Indian context, because everybody loves cricket in India,
Yeah.
and everybody loves Sachin Tendulkar, and everybody knows about Vinod Kambli.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at the career graphs and if you read the book and look, and that is like an enlightening moment from me. I could really relate to some of the sports examples she gave, and also I could relate to what happened in India. If you look at pure talent, Vinod Kambli was way above Sachin Tendulkar. There's no question in the talent. And this is not said by me. I'm not a cricket pundit. It was said by all the pundits, even the coach Ramakant Archikar himself.
Yeah.
At a school level, Vinod Kambli used to outscore Sachin in pretty much every match, right? Look at the start of the careers. Sachin had a decent start. Vinod Kambli had scored 2 double hundreds in the first 2 test matches. But if you look at the career graph after that, look at what Sachin achieved, and look at what Vinod could not achieve. Let me put it this way. And I'm not putting a question mark on his ability, just that, but it is, I mean, you'll find a lot of things written about the story about Vinod Kambli and Sachin Tendulkar, even in the net, and how simply putting that effort made the difference. Because talent was not a question between the two. Vinod was way above more talent Sachin Tendulkar. But Sachin was somebody who, after every match, even when he was successful, went back in the evening and went to the nets and practiced. Even he had no holidays. He used to go to his neighborhood ground and practice, even he was a world champion cricketer.
Right, right.
So he never believed that. I don't think he believed that he was a gifted player. He was a natural ability. He believed in making an effort. And if we really have to understand the growth and fixed mindset to forget about everything else, I would ask everyone to think about Vinod Kambli and Sachin Tendulkar. That will tell you the real difference between efforts and natural talent, where efforts can take you, even though you don't have the so-called natural talent. So that example I thought I will share because that is very relatable to Indian context.
Beautiful example that you have given, because I remember an incident where a friend of mine, an ex-colleague of mine, was in the hotel industry, and apparently He was serving in one of the hotels where the Indian cricket team was stationed. And this boy was absolutely excited that Sachin se milne ka ek mauka milega, and he said, "Can I get a chance?" He goes and talks to the banquet manager, saying, "Is there a chance?" And he had joined the hotel in young mind and obviously wanted to see the god of cricket. He said, "Yeah, but why don't you come to the ground or the pitch in the evening? There's a practice space." So the man, okay, what time is 7:30 or something? So he goes there 7:30, and this is a real story. All the other players are in their rooms relaxing or doing whatever they are doing. At 7:30, when it is dark, this man is standing there, he's got that machine and the light is on and he's practicing, right? So our boy is waiting for Sachin. I don't remember who the coach was that time. The coach also was there, one of the Australian coaches. So the banquet manager introduced this guy to the coach, and coach says, "Let's wait here. Sachin will come." So Sachin is playing. So एक घंटा कुछ हो गया. They were waiting. And then Sachin comes. And then he says, "My God, the god of cricket in front of me." He comes to him, takes an autograph, and says, "Hope everything comfortable for you, sir. Anything, please tell me. I'm there to serve you," and all that stuff. And Sachin also gives the autograph and goes off. Then our man asked the coach that, "My God, 7:30, why is he practicing? He has done everything in his life. Why should he do that?" The coach answer was fabulous. He said, "You know, when the fastest bowler of the world is throwing the ball at 130, 140 speed, right? You have like 6 runs and 3 balls kind of a situation, and 40,000 people in the stadium with their heart out of their throat. And this man is standing there facing it, who's probably half the height of the bowler there. Yeah. Kind of a pressure that must be into him. And the ball comes at 140, he whacks it with a straight drive, sends it for a 4, and the entire 40,000 plus outside the stadium are going berserk. The pressure is unimaginable.
Yeah.
Sachin, because even after doing this 100 times, he's still at 7:30, 8:30 practicing. This was fabulous. This is nothing but efforts, isn't it? Which is what you're talking about.
Absolutely. There's so many, and thanks for sharing the story. I'll share this also. This is a perfect example, having the growth mindset and believing in efforts.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if you watched this movie which is coming on Netflix about the McDonald. Ray Kroc.
I will say this. It's part of my.
He clearly says talent is bullshit. He did. Audacity to say that talent is idiots. The only thing that can define success is perseverance, persistence, and effort.
Yeah. I think
of McDonald.
Yeah, if you read Mindset, well, I think Carol Dweck had a more civilized language. But it felt that way, to be honest.
Yeah.
It is really, I think it's the most overrated word as far in management is what I think.
True.
Most overrated talent.
Good. Thank you for bringing this effort. Listening to Devashish, guys, is just about effort. Just go and do that, what Sachin is doing, so that you end up being Sachin Tendulkar and not probably being Vinod and losing things in your life. So thank you for that, Devashish, driving that thing. So I'm going to ask you the next one, right? Now I'm going to read this. He says, praise and positive labels accentuate your performance and pushes your potential. This is what Carol says. And why does she say, when he's saying this, that it's a danger from the perspective of the two mindsets? All of us love praise. All of us love acknowledgements.
Yeah.
I also understand that it could probably send us to a complacency, which is okay. Why should it be seen as a danger? Danger is quite an extrapolated word or a lofted word for this, right? What is your take on it?
No, again, this is a very the way I see it is that, praise and recognition are very, very important for motivation. Like it's simple. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But the point is, Rajiv, what should you actually praise about? And what is like big bold font, 40 underlined, right? What you should praise for is so important than just the praising and appreciation itself.
Right.
Because if the praise is given to the wrong attitude or wrong attribute, it can slowly turn people into someone with fixed mindsets.
Okay.
So that's what are you praising? What behaviors are you appreciating? That becomes more important. So when you design our R&R programs, so on and so forth, that is an underlying criteria that one should have. And the author gives a very nice example there too. Let me give that example very quickly. Was that he did a lot of research for writing this book, right? Experiments, research, everything. So one of the experiment he did with a bunch of students, right? So with this, there is one group of students, they gave a fairly difficult IQ test. There are 10, so the students did fairly well. And when they finished the test, she praised the students. So Carol Dweck praised the students, saying what? Saying that, wow, you have got 8 out of 10 right. That's a really good score. You must be really smart. So that's what she said to one group of people. 8 out of 10, you are really smart. It's a really good score, right? Now to the other group of students, she gave the same test. She said very differently. She said, wow, you have got 8 out of 10 right. That's a really good score. You must have worked really hard for it. So difference between that, one is that you are really smart. The second is you must have really worked hard for it. And interestingly, same score, similar groups, similar college students, right? Everybody is brilliant, intelligent, so on and so forth. The first group was praised as if they had a certain special gift. You're really smart. Yeah. You're intelligent. Yeah. Rajiv, you're best. Right. So second group was done for praise for doing what it takes to succeed.
The effort.
Just effort. Exactly. So they have, over the period of time, she also looked at the performance and the behaviors and the success of these two groups. And they, and I said, this group was a 3 decades of research, right? When they started, both the groups were at the same footing, equal to each other, first time equals, but right after the praise, the two different types of praises, they begin to differ and almost like started dissecting like a Y, right? The group that was praised for their ability, for the smartest, intelligence, born gift, talent, they start developing a fixed mindset and started rejecting the challenging new tasks. They stopped taking risks. While the other group who was praised for their efforts, right, started taking up, focusing on their own improvements, started focusing on own development and accept new challenges. So for me, this is a very great study that she has done. For me, the way I understand it as a leader, Rajiv, is that, how did I handle this piece to be part of your question? Yeah. I actually made it my personal leadership mantra, to put it in a precisely and concisely. Earlier, right, when I used to praise people saying, no, Rajiv, I can really see your talent. You are the best in what you do. Now I've stopped saying this now. Right. Okay. Now I work differently, more like a growth mindset perspective. Now I will tell you that, Rajiv, the program that you put together for mindset for my organization, I can clearly see the hard work that went into this.
Huge difference.
Huge difference. Rather than saying, Rajiv, your program is the best that I've ever seen or could ever be. Rajiv, you'll stop growing after that. You'll stop making it better because you're already the best.
I agree.
So you and I, when I work and you work all the time, you will hear me saying a lot that, I can really see, Rajiv, the effort that you put behind this.
Right.
The hard work they're going into this. And these are some of the simple and yet very powerful ways to build.
They're very transparent.
Yeah.
I'm able to realize that, because for a moment, if you leave the result bit out, which is what we were talking about, so that let's say Rajiv puts the effort and Devashish puts the effort. In Devashish's case, the result is positive. In my case, the result, let's say, is not so positive. And we both of us report to one boss. The boss still comes and appreciates, let's say, the effort for both of us. Both of us would still travel with the growth mindset, right? And
absolutely,
that appreciation of the effort, irrespective of the result, is such a motivator and impetus for the person who's taking the effort, isn't it? He or she would try alternatives to again go and do something differently and put more effort to ensure that this time the person succeeds.
Absolutely. When you're only the best, what else you can do? Right? There's nowhere to go.
True.
You're already perfect. You can't improve perfection. So I think the way we praise in organizations, in our own leadership style, the way we praise, that's why the what are you praising is something which is very, very important. And that's something is very powerful in the book that I come across.
Beautiful, beautiful. This is lovely. I love the way you articulate it. It makes tremendous sense. And that's one reason why, if you start praising and labeling them for the success, it can be a danger signal because it kind of pushes you into the fixed mindset zone that you're talking about.
Very true. That's true.
Super. Okay. Now there's another concept which sounded a little tough for me. It still sounds a little difficult for me. He says this thing called hearing the mindsets.
Yes.
Right. Could you elaborate this phrase for the listeners? What do you mean by hearing the mindsets, and how can somebody actually practice this to their advantage? Is there a noise? Is there a voice that you can hear too?
Yeah, I think there's another, I think, very, very powerful concept. The way I see that is that, the author says that as leaders and coaches, we can sometimes determine whether someone has a fixed mindset or a growth mindset by listening to what they are saying. That is what she meant by, how do I know Rajiv has a fixed or a growth mindset?
Okay.
Sometimes you have to hear them saying certain things and then you understand. So that is what the author says, that hearing the mindsets, right? She wrote one chapter, I think I remember, in the context of sports in the book.
Yeah.
But it could
mindset of a champion.
Very right. That's thanks for reminding me on that one. That is exactly the one. But it could be true in the context of business as well, right? Suppose a cricketer tells you, right? Let's stay with cricket, right? Tells you the beginning of an important match, saying that I must win this game. It's a do or die for me. It is the last chance I have got. Because if I win, I'll be a superstar. If I lose, I'll be a nobody. So when you hear as a coach or a leader, somebody saying that, you can actually determine somebody has a growth or a fixed mindset.
Right.
Very interestingly, when somebody goes into extremes like that, if I don't win, I lose completely. The author calls it as very importantly, as a somebody nobody syndrome.
Okay.
Right? It means that if you win, you are somebody. If you lose, you are nobody. But the truth is somewhere in between. You don't lose a game and become nobody, right? It is just a game.
Yeah.
Look at the context of organizations now, and that's when again my flashbulbs went on. Sometimes we do I do the mistake, to be honest, right? I go and pitch a very powerful thing to my stakeholders, and I tell myself sometimes that, Debashish, if I don't do a good job, I have lost it. There's no way I can recover. Okay, I have seen that is a fixed mindset. I can always recover. There is always tomorrow. I can get better at it. At the worst, I'll do a bad job, but I can get better.
Correct.
I don't become a bad person, a bad employee, and forget about what I've done in the past 20 years because of one particular pitch that I make into a important client.
I agree.
Attending interviews, I have heard people telling that I have to get this interview, otherwise I'm done. It cannot be that. I have to get this promotion.
True, I agree.
I have to get this role.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm nobody. So I think it's very interesting. We have to constantly think about in our minds and listen to people about, is somebody talking about having that nobody syndrome? Because that is when you can determine whether somebody has a fixed or a growth mindset.
Yeah.
I hope I was able to explain to you, but it's a very powerful subject.
You did explain this very clearly. What you said also makes sense from another angle. As I'm thinking, Debashish, is when you don't have this pressure that you put on yourself that I have to win this, you are at far more peace and calm within yourself, right? You are able to see alternatives clearly. You can look at options in front of you. Your efforts can take a different direction and probably come back and give a result that you intend to have. Whereas if you're getting jittery and stressed because I have to get it right.
Absolutely.
I had a call at 9:40 with Debashish. Shit, man, ask a power chala again and get jittery and said, oh my God, what do I do? That's it, I'm done. My downward spiral starts there on.
Totally agree.
I think you're making me think. It kind of really, because I remember Devashish, when the COVID was at its peak in the month of March, mid-March. I had a friend of mine, with all good intention and well wish for me, said, Ajiv, what's the alternative that you're looking at if the business doesn't take off and if things go bad? Are you looking at getting back to corporate as a head of L&D role? I completely appreciate the intention in which he came, because good friend, and he helped me in putting up the concept of the organization. So I respect him for that. I said I appreciate that a lot. At the moment, I'm not even keeping that option in my mind
Yeah,
open, because the moment I think and keep the door open, I'm not going to put all the requisite effort to move the leadership elements where I want to move it up.
totally agree.
Right? And
Totally agree.
a couple of months of a COVID can't kill the entrepreneurial spirit in me, which is larger, and the purpose and the why that Simon is far bigger than a 5-6 months of COVID.
Absolutely. You will not become nobody. You have worked so hard to be where you are. Just because of 6 months of not so great things happening around us, you don't suddenly become a nobody, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. It
So,
doesn't.
so
Yeah.
good. You could hear your own voice. That's what is, hearing oneself. So you
Yeah.
could hear your own voice, that you have a
I
growth
agree.
mind. But sometimes it does happen. Human beings are different, right? With
Yeah.
pressure, you can drift away towards having a fixed mindset. I think we have to pull ourselves back to the right mindset. So yeah, it's quite possible.
Quite possible. Yeah, my father is 78, so he's a little worried. He keeps asking me, "So are you worried?" And I said, "Look, when you ask me, I don't know how to answer that. Let me give you confidence. The beauty of the stage is not an iota of worry I have in my head ki how this COVID is going to translate my business, etc. into, because it doesn't work that way. Then you stop growth. So I think this book, I also kind of read a couple of things for this conversation. It also made me think. I sat and made some notes on what do I want to do for the organization further. So thank you for making me read Carol once again.
There's a good thing about good books. You can go back to it again and again and discover something new about everything.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're right. You're right. Lovely. So I'm going to ask you the next question. From a growth mindset, as an individual that Debashish is, but today you're a representative of an organization. You have a badge, you have a designation, you have a role there, right? How did you build the organizational mindset as a successful leader?
Yeah, I think first of all, I love the fact that you use the phrase organizational mindset and not organizational behavior, which is typically used in HRM. I'm not a big fan of that behavior term, because it has to be mindset, and not because of this book.
Yeah.
Because I fundamentally see mindset as something which is more sustainable, more deep rooted, while behaviors can change over time.
Yeah.
Right? When you're focusing on mindset, you're actually talking about building an organizational culture. And not just a bunch of training programs to enforce some norms and policies and acceptable behaviors. So that's, I think, as I said, I love the term organizational mindset. I hope we can stop talking about behaviors at all. The way I have built, right, to answer your question, I think is, if I think about it, it's a very deep question, but I'm trying to probably talk about three things briefly about what I believe has been successful for me as a leader when I try to build that organizational mindset. I focus on three things, right? One is, as a leader, talk about failures. For me, if we have not failed enough, you've not tried hard enough.
Right.
As a leader, you have to be authentic, show your vulnerable side, show your weaknesses, show that you have areas of growth, areas of opportunity, show that you have a growth mindset. So that is, we are very good generally of talking about successes, right? But you should talk about failures as well. Even today, when I listen to all the analyst calls and CEOs talking, unfortunately, I don't see too many failure stories coming up.
Yeah.
We always talk about success a lot. I understand there's a motivation part of it also, but I hope that at some levels you talk about failures as well. So that is the one thing that I do. Number two is self-accountability of learning. Learning for any employee in the organization, including me, is my own responsibility.
True.
It is not the company's responsibility to upskill me or upgrade me or invest in me. Because when I am accountable for my own learning, only then I will learn. Otherwise, it will be just be sending me to a training program. Company is paying me 50,000 for my course. I come out and don't learn anything.
Right.
And then I want to demonstrate and show me the skills what they have learned. Sometimes I see the learners, somebody who is coaching is actually working more hard than the learner. The learner should be working hard. Right?
Thank you for empathizing with people like yourself.
Oh yes. And that is you have to be the accountability of learning stops at you and nobody else, right? That's the second thing. And I think third thing is that as a organizational mindset and culture, I think I always celebrate the best, not only the best performer and the performance, but I also celebrate the most improved performer for his or her efforts.
True.
Our focus cannot be on performance, promote promote and put bonuses top performers and let the bottom performers go.
Important.
Yeah, but what is the leap that you're going? If I'm at 3, am I moving to 2? Or from 2, I'm moving to 1. That to me is something we should appreciate, we should celebrate.
Yeah.
I think those are 2, 3. One is talking about failures, having accountability of learning, and celebrate the improvement. And not just the performance is something is important. We build up that culture, sustainable mindset, organizational mindset. And as a leader, I believe that the change starts with me, not with anybody else. I need to do those things first. I need to share my stories of failures and vulnerabilities. I need to demonstrate that I am focused on my own improvement and growth. And this mindset has to be part of our everyday conversations. And that is when you build the organizational mindset and not just behaviors, according to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely understand what you're saying and relate to that so much, Devashi, because if you come to the education space, there are schools which are talking about moving a 94% guy to a 98. That is okay. But if you moved a 70 to an 85, that is huge success of the teachers in the community, right?
Huge. Absolutely.
Right? 94 to 98, तो ठीक है, 4 mark तो वैसे भी बढ़ लेगा.
Right.
70 को 80 में लाना is like huge work.
Yep.
That's why the teacher has really done some magic, as against the other teacher who has done some element of work to move the scale by just 4 basis points.
Right. And if I had my way, right, the kind of cutoff marks that I see for different colleges, business schools, I'd actually scrap that because I know everybody knows that there is no correlation between academic success and professional success.
Nothing.
I would rather have a way where people have shown continuous improvement.
Absolutely.
Right? But again, this is a different discussion some other day.
On context, please go and watch the movie McDonald's. Definitely, Devashi, because one of the biggest thing of McDonald's is you can be a 10th pass or a 12th pass and you can rise up to become the head of operations for McDonald's for a region.
Correct.
उनके लिए डिग्री फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता है.
Right.
It's just common sense and the cognitive ability to apply your bloody head and the mindset in the right way is what Ray Kroc talks about. So lovely.
Right.
Thank you so much. It makes tremendous sense. As you go to the last question, I want to share one thought. You are an HR person, so you'll really appreciate this. R&R is a very important thing. A lot of things you guys do to create that engagement, so-called, in employees. One of the guests said very beautifully that, Rajiv, as much as we do an R&R for people who start doing something very differently, we should also have an R&R for appreciating people who stop doing something based on the failures that they've experienced. That's also equally important. Why can't we have an R&R for these 10 people stop doing something based on the learnings from the failures? We should appreciate them and give them R&R. I think this makes tremendous sense to me.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So as we come to the close, I'm going to ask you the last question. I'm conscious of time. You have a hard stop at 11, right? All the experience of yours, Devashi, since we first met as a facilitator and a student in a classroom many years back, visiting as professionals, it's a lovely journey. You're a lovely friend, Devashi. Though we connected after a long time, it didn't seem that we connected after a very long time. Thank you for making it so comforting and so lovely. All that experience that you have garnered over a time, and you moved from the operations side to an HR, and today you're a sitting HR head. 2 laser sharp advice that you would give to the young minds Could be from your own life or could be from the learning of this book. I leave that to you.
I think again, I would, the first one would be from the book, of course, that have a growth mindset. Right, I cannot talk about it enough. There is a reason why my library is filled on books. I share a common passion of books. So there is reason why I chose this book among some of the gems that are there in my shelf. Right, I think having that growth mindset is absolutely important for you to ensure long-term success in your career.
Right.
Okay, have the hunger for learning and constantly try to improve yourself. Okay, so that's the first. I think don't believe in talent, don't believe in this word like God's gift or born natural thing and all. Have a growth mindset, have a hunger for learning, and constantly look at areas to improve yourself. Read the right books and improve yourself. That is another thing I do that. Okay, I think that's the first advice from the book. Second advice probably I can give is that when we choose a particular role, assignment, job, company, I think what one should consider is two things. One, in that job, how will I be able to improve my skills? What new will I learn from that job? Number one. Number two, how will that role contribute to the overall success of the organization?
Right.
So if these two boxes are checked, as I would say it, right, don't worry about anything else. Especially don't worry about a designation or don't worry about a money, because those things will be just a natural outcome of that. As long as your job gives you an opportunity to improve on your skills and learn something new, and as long as that job has an overall impact on the organization, you'll be good. Beautiful. So those are the few short and quick advice I can give to everybody.
Constantly keep learning, and second, contribute to self skills and also the organization. And as you rightly said, designations, growth, and money are all outcomes of this. So thank you so much, Debashish. What I loved is you just didn't come onto this event and spoke because you had to speak, but I could feel that mindset, belief that you have, because you're thinking and answering. And when I play to people, they'll see that you're not immediately answering to a question. You're thinking and answering, which means you've applied this and you've seen benefit out of it. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation and coming and joining the force. I completely enjoyed the conversation. I hope you also did.
Absolutely. When you say something, I can't say no to you, Rajiv. You know that. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate the work that you do. It is very close to my heart that you do. And keep doing what you do. I think it's more than just running an organization, more than running a training program. But I personally have benefited from your programs and I see people are benefiting from that as well. So thank you for having me. Right, and I hope to chat to you again sometime on a different book.
Absolutely. There'll be something else that's coming up from our side, so I'll again call you and we'll have a chat on that there.
Would love to have a chat with you anytime.
Lovely. You have a good day, and I'll soon see you when I start flying down to your city. Right?
All right, absolutely. All right, Rajiv, thank you again, and bye-bye. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.